I'm not saying that it happened. I'm not saying that I have any evidence, but maybe it could have happened. Maybe. It's been a hot minute since I've talked about the Rammstein situation, and one of the things that I'm glad about is that it does seem like this controversy is starting to quiet down just a bit. There was not as much news last week and not as many articles as there had been the week before. But I wanted to talk about something that came out in the media last week that really upset me, dismayed me, although I don't know why I'm even surprised anymore. I shouldn't be. And I talked about this a bit online, but I didn't have time to get into it. And I want to talk about it now. So, Foreign Policy Magazine. This is one of the most prestigious journals, periodicals, news outlets in the world. And you can see that they take themselves very seriously. Well, they have a major article. They had a major article that came out last week entitled Rammstein is Germany's Scary New Normal. It says the band's continued popularity is a sign of the country's increasingly right-wing zeitgeist. And it has a scary looking image of the band members in black leather. So they found, of course, the most fascist looking attire that they could find for the picture they chose to use in this article. So I want to actually look through this and use this as a kind of an object lesson. This article is kind of an object lesson in what is so wrong with the media. The article begins, it's hard to overlook the way that the tumult and horror prompted by recent charges of sexual misconduct against German band Rammstein reflects the wild scenes that play out at its live performances. For nearly 30 years, the six-man industrial group hailing from East Germany has growled dark and ribald lyrics during stage shows of extravagant pyrotechnics, violent play acting, and ear-splitting instrumentals. In light of the accusations, the giant dildos that launch fireballs and standards of its repertoire, such as Pussy, are finally being examined in a much more exacting light. So they use terms like this group has growled dark lyrics during stage shows, extravagant pyrotechnics, violent play acting, and ear-splitting instrumentals. Giant dildos that launch fireballs and a song called Pussy. Like all of these different aspects of the band's performance, they're reported in this really accusatory, breathless way. The article continues. Over the past month, several women spoke up about the band's practiced system of coercing young women into post-show sex with frontman Till Lindemann. The routine, apparently as well rehearsed as the group's finely choreographed shows, included plenty of booze at pre and post gig parties and drugs too, maybe even in the form of a knockout drug. This perhaps to me is the worst example of the worst kind of journalism. The passage where it says these parties included plenty of booze at pre and post gig parties and drugs too. Okay, well, first of all, no evidence that anyone in the band was giving anyone in the band or the crew was giving anyone drugs. So if fans were doing drugs on their own, all right, getting loaded prior to coming to these parties, that's on them. But it said booze at pre and post gig parties and drugs too, maybe even in the form of a knockout drug. Maybe even in the form of a knockout drug. Do you see what they're doing here? They're taking Crazy Shelby, who has been completely discredited in multiple ways. They are taking Crazy Shelby's allegations of possible drugging, although she hasn't actually accused, she's retracted her accusation against the band and the crew, and now she just leaves it as sort of vague. Well, I felt weird, and so I figured I must have been drugged. No one has actually come out. Understand this, everyone. No one has actually come out and directly now accused Till Lindemann or the band or the crew of drugging them. Shelby at first did, and then she retracted it, and no one else has. Even this anonymous woman that German media talked to several weeks ago, who said that she felt like she had sort of lost some time, where she didn't know how, how she'd gotten from point A to point B, or she thinks she remembers waking up at one point and not knowing what's going on. It's all of this cloudy BS. No one has made definitive accusations, and they're not going to, because this is bullshit. But this is not enough for Foreign Policy Magazine, because Foreign Policy Magazine and those who are writing for it, they have a particular political agenda that it is misandrous, it is anti-male, and they have Rammstein in their sights. And so they'll slip this thing in here, this little phrase, maybe even in the form of a knockout drug, that maybe, as in to say, well, we don't actually have any evidence, and actually we're not even really asserting this. We're just saying that, like, maybe it could have happened, maybe. It's the worst. It's the worst kind of what used to be called yellow journalism. The worst kind of journalism. Because early on in their article, they are putting in here, they are including this terrible accusation. People are going to read this maybe in the form of a knockout drug, and they're going to say, oh my God, Foreign Policy Magazine is accusing Till Lindemann and the band of using knockout drugs to assault women. But Foreign Policy Magazine, they can slink out of it and they can say, no, we just said maybe, maybe. Well, you can say anything with maybe. You know what? Hey, everybody, did you know that maybe Foreign Policy Magazine drugs everybody who works for it so that the executives of Foreign Policy Magazine can sexually assault all of their underling journalists? I'm not saying that it happened. I'm not saying that I have any evidence, but maybe it could have happened. So maybe people who run Foreign Policy Magazine are just a bunch of sexual predators and rapists. Maybe. Oh my God. And so that's the kind of thing that we see right off the bat in this article. And it's one of the reasons why I am just more and more distrustful of the media. All right, continuing on. It says, apparently the hookups were orchestrated by Lindemann's underlings in the road crew, not unlike the way that, on stage, the other 5 band members play act dispassionately cruel foot soldiers under Lindemann's command. They are taking their artistic onstage act and they are misconstruing it as evidence that Till Lindemann basically holds this kind of tyrannical place both in the band and with his crew. And so that's why these bad things might be happening, maybe are happening to these women, is because just like what we see on stage, Till Lindemann is this tyrant who tells everyone what to do and has everyone doing his horribly dastardly bidding. Continuing on, images of the 60-year-old Lindemann in concert regalia, at times black leather S&M combat vest. Ooh, S&M combat vest. Ooh. At others, blood red sci-fi uniforms. Oh my God, they're not just sci-fi uniforms, but they're blood red. Red is the color of blood, violence. Oh my God, if you wear something red, it must mean that you're a violent person, right? Okay. Have been splashed all over the media, a sign that the German public is finally taking the band to task for the assaults that have been happening for years. So now Foreign Policy Magazine, without any evidence, they are just going to conclude for everyone that not only are assaults taking place, but they've been taking place for years. Absolutely no solid evidence, nothing. Just going by Shelby. And then what? A couple of women anonymously who said that they had consensual sex with Till Lindemann, but then after the fact, they realized it might have been problematic because of a power imbalance. Kayla Schicks, German influencer, who didn't even see Till Lindemann, and yet she gets almost 6 million views on her YouTube video where she calls herself one of Till's girls. She never even saw Till Lindemann in person. He never even got to the party. She left. She was allowed to leave. It was no big deal. And she's going on YouTube and whining for everyone to her 6 million viewers, pocketing a cool, 30 grand to call herself one of Till's girls.